What's up guys and welcome to Tech Lab. Today we're going to be talking about why switching out one of those old hard drives to an SSD is one of the best upgrades you can make to any budget machine. Now there are thousands of gamers out there that are currently using hard drives in their systems, and they generally come from workstations or ex-office PCs that have been converted into beastly gaming machines, and they're starting to struggle with general operations and loading times. And today we hope not only to show you how to actually swap those drives out, but also demonstrate the difference that you'll see when doing so. So to help with today's video, we've pulled out our retro Intel system that we've been building on the channel recently. And we chose to do that because this system was built with a period of 2010 in mind, and it was built with an actual mechanical hard drive. Now, if you didn't watch that video, make sure you check it out because we actually demonstrated in that how slow the hard drive was in terms of installing Windows. But now that it's actually running, when we're actually in games, it's not too bad, but the load times have suffered. This system's also a great demonstration because when we bought the case, which was a refurbished model, we were missing some of the parts, so we're actually going to have to adapt a SSD to fit where a hard drive normally does. And talking about SSDs, this is the drive that we're going to be using today. We purchased this from Crucial. It's a BX500 480GB drive. Now you can use any size drive that you want. We would advise that you go as big as possible that you can potentially afford, but you don't necessarily have to do that. We're fitting a 480 drive in replacement of a 320. This isn't our main system, so we don't need nothing too big, but you could simply run your operating system off of something a lot smaller. You can actually get 120GB SSDs now for as little as £15, and they would be perfect to run your operating system off and then convert your hard drive to just a standard storage. Now we've used many of these drives from Crucial before and they're not too bad. They're obviously 2.5-inch SATA drives. They'll connect exactly the same as the mechanical hard drives that you've got. They're pretty robust and they're priced really well as well. This one actually cost around £35 to £40. That was actually on a sale. Generally they're a little bit more than that for the 480s, but you can again get, like I said before, get 240 gigs or 120 gigs. And if you go for a different brand, you're going to get them really, really cheap. Now, before you do anything, make sure you back up your files, anything that you want to be able to save from your existing system. There are methods out there for copying your actual Windows installation to the new drive and continuing, but we don't like to do that. We like to give a big, fresh reinstall of our systems because it helps make sure everything works perfectly. And why not have a clean out when you can? Now, obviously, the first thing we need to do is actually remove the back panel from the PC because the hard drive is actually in the basement of this one, just in front of the power supply. And we're going to have to fight through a few cables because we didn't really do that well at cable management when we built this system. Now that we've got the side off, what we need to do is flip it over and we will see that our hard drive is actually placed there in a clip style system with the cables in it. Now if we remove those cables simply by squeezing the little squeeze and then pulling that one out, that's the actual SATA data cable, pulling out the power cable, and then squeezing in the brackets and sliding the bay out. We can actually then simply take the brackets off the side of the hard drive, and that's our hard drive out. Now, like I said earlier, we didn't actually get any mechanism within this case to be able to fit the 2.5-inch drives because usually on these Cooler Master systems, what they do is they use a rubber bung system that you can screw to the hard drive and simply plug in. We didn't get any of those rubber bungs because they were just missing from the pack because the case was a refurbished model. But the case that you've got, you may actually have those fittings, and sometimes they don't even use the rubber bungs anyway. They use just straight screw to the system. So make sure you check the manual on your case because you may be able to fit this without the next step. But if you are fitting into a bit of an old system, maybe you don't have the original accessories, or maybe it just wasn't built for something to hold a 2.5-inch drive, the mechanism that we're about to use is something that you would need. And that would be to actually have one of these. Now this is a simple metal chassis adapter that goes from a 2.5-inch drive up to the 3.5-inch width, and that's what we're going to use. Now, to install the drive onto the adapter, it's very similar to if you were actually going to be installing it to a system. The screws on the bottom of the actual SSD drive will simply line up to the screw holes on the adapters, and you want to make sure that this cutout here is where your actual ports for the SATA drive go. So it wants to go that way, and then we can flip it upside down and basically insert the standard screws for a hard drive straight through the bottom and in. Now that we have the SSD actually into the adapter, you'll see that it pretty much makes it the same size, and the screws will actually line up on the sides of it to pretty much the same place. So this can now actually be installed into a 3.5-inch bay, and we can put this one to the side. For this case, obviously we need to re-put these little runners back on it, which will slot onto this piece just like it did on the hard drive and into the system. But if you actually had to remove your hard drive by unscrewing it, because sometimes they do with the cases, then obviously you'll need to reinsert the screws through this, and each screw hole is actually threaded to be able to do that. For us, that's not the case, and we'll simply just push on the side brackets just like this. And just a pretty cool feature with these Cooler Master cases is these brackets that they provide do actually already come with rubber mountings. So if there was any vibration from a hard drive, because you can get 2.5-inch mechanical drives, obviously we won't get any problem with an SSD because there's no moving parts, but they do come with those rubber pieces to reduce any noise going forward. Now if we flip our case back onto its front, the installation process is basically the reverse of the removal process. And you would have known this if you'd have built the system in the first place. We simply want to slide it back into the bay that it came from before, and it should just clip straight in like that. Now, cable wise, all we want to do is reinsert the cables exactly where they came from before. So we want the SATA data cable there. We'll find our SATA cable here. So we've got our SATA power cable, and that will just clip straight on again. And that is basically the installation complete. Now all we need to do is get a copy of Windows, and if you didn't have one on a USB stick already, make sure you do that before you actually start tearing the system down. You can always, if you forget, plug your hard drive back in, because we haven't modified this at all. You can plug it straight back into the system, do the reverse of what we just did, boot it up into Windows, go to the Microsoft website, and you'll be able to download the Windows installation files. Now usually they will actually give you a tool that you can download to the system. You run that tool, it will then download the operating system and build a USB stick. If you want us to do a more detailed video on how to download and install Windows, make sure you comment below and let us know. So now that we have our system installed, it's time to do some benchmarks. Now, when we did have the hard drive in this, we did do a couple of runs and timed how long it takes Windows to reset from inside Windows down to being turned off and back on again. And we also did a couple of benches with some games, and this is what we saw. So as you can see from those benchmarks, upgrading to the SSD has made a huge difference to the system. The biggest differences you can see is actually when you're inside of Windows trying to navigate around, do things, click things, open applications, basically any kind of loading at all. And in particular, when you actually reset the machine, it's going to shut down and reboot very quickly compared to the hard drive. Now that's going to save lots of time for those of us that accidentally click restart instead of shut down, which is always going to be a good thing for us. In game, you don't actually see a difference in performance, but you do in the loading times of those games. So if you're playing a lot of games that are big open world and they have to load a lot of data in, you're going to really see a difference with that. Now, if you have actually used your old hard drive as a secondary drive and just installed it separately and added the extra cables in, reformatted it, got it to a bit of a secondary drive to store things like games and stuff, obviously you're not really going to see much of a difference in that loading time in games because you're still going to load up from this drive. But if you are running them from the SSD, you're going to see a huge difference in that area. Now I hope this video helped some of you out there on understanding why you should actually upgrade from a hard drive to an SSD and the difference that it can make. If you like this video, make sure you drop us a like and make sure you subscribe to the channel to see more videos going forward.